Hey everyone, my name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension Service here in Hernando County. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Florida Friendly Landscape principle of responsible pest control. So if we're talking about some kind of pest, and a pest can be an insect, it could be a weed that's either in your lawn or in your flower beds or in your landscape, or it could be a plant disease. So if we're talking about some kind of pest, really, pest management is a much better way of looking at it. If the problem is outdoors, you're going to try to manage it. You're going to try to keep it under control because there's no way that we can sanitize the great outdoors. You can't kill every insect that's in your yard or in your lawn, but we can get them under control so that they're not damaging your lawn or your vegetables or your flowers in your yard. If we're talking about an indoor pest, something like cockroaches, silverfish, or some type of pantry pest, then of course you're going to want it to get down to a much lower level, ideally zero. You really want to try to get completely rid of those insect pests indoors. So in that case, we're talking a little bit more about pest control. So when we're talking about any kind of pest, the most important first step that you want to take is proper identification. I speak with a lot of people who call us up and they say, my bushes don't look right, or I think I have some kind of problem. What kind of insecticide do I spray? And we ask them, well, what kind of insect do you have? And many times they don't know. They've never actually seen an insect. And in that case, we really don't know what kind of recommendations to give you, because it's very important that you start with identifying exactly what your pest is. That's getting the insect, first of all, finding the insect and getting the insect properly identified. Or if we're talking about a weed that's in your lawn, getting that weed identified, finding out exactly what type of weed it is. Or if you have a problem with your plants have a disease, getting that disease identified or making sure that it's a disease to begin with. And then once we have that kind of information, we can take the next step and recommend some kind of control. Because just because you see an insect in your yard doesn't mean that it's a pest. It doesn't mean that it's actually damaging your plants. It may just be sitting on a leaf. It may be a beneficial insect. We all know that ladybugs are good insects, so obviously you wouldn't want to spray for them. But the next step that you want to take is to figure out exactly what your damage threshold is. And that goes back to if you walk out in your yard tomorrow morning and you see a great big grasshopper sitting on a leaf on your hedge, it may not be eating your hedge. It may not be causing any damage at all. It may just be sitting there passing through your yard. And obviously, if you only have one grasshopper in your entire yard doesn't need to be sprayed. So the reality is here in Florida, we have a lot of insects. We have a lot of diseases that are dependent somewhat on the weather. They get really bad sometimes of the year. Other parts of the year, they're not nearly as bad. And you may have to tolerate a little bit of damage or a couple of lost leaves or a little bit of a problem. So you need to keep that in mind before you start rushing out to start spraying to control. Because the next step is once we have the problem identified and once you come to the conclusion that, yes, this pest is damaging my lawn, it's damaging my vegetable garden, it's damaging my flowers or my roses, then you pick the proper control. And that's where extension can be very helpful for you, because once we know what the pest is, we know what kind of control to recommend. Unfortunately, a lot of people assume that whatever they have in the shed or in their garage is going to be the ideal control. So they see a bug in their yard and they run to the shed and grab a bottle of whatever it may be. Insecticides are not all created the same. Some are very effective on some insects and not effective on other ones. And the exact same goes for herbicides if you're worried about weed control, and even more so with fungicides and plant diseases. So it's very important that you put a little bit of thought into this and get proper advice to find out what the proper control is going to be to actually solve that problem. And then, of course, once you've done that, a very important final step that a lot of people don't think about is follow-up. So after you've treated, you need to go back after a certain period of time, it might be a couple days, might be a week, and double check and find out, Did what I spray on here actually do what I wanted it to do? Is my problem solved? Have the populations of whatever insect pest it may be dropped? If you're looking for some kind of indoor pest control, do I see a reduction in the number of insects inside of my house? Do I see evidence of dead insects? Did my control actually work? So through follow-up, you're going to find out if maybe you've made a mistake with the identification in the first place. Maybe you picked the wrong control. You applied it incorrectly. You didn't mix it correctly. So all those things you're going to figure out and see if you actually did it right when you do some kind of follow-up. So in conclusion, if you have any kind of insect pests or a weed problem in your lawn or in your flower beds, or you suspect that you might have a plant disease on some of your landscape plants or on a tree, please feel free to contact the UF IFAS extension in Hernando County. Our phone number is right below here. We are at work. If you can call us, you can email pictures. A lot of times we can identify things for pictures, and we can help you with the proper identification and recommendations on what you can use that's going to be safe for you, safe for the neighbors, safe for the kids, and it's going to actually be effective and help to get whatever pest problem you have under control. So those are a couple little basics of responsible pest control that you want to keep in mind anytime you have some kind of pest problem. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll see you again really soon.